I would now like to hand the conference over to Mr. Anand Shah from Axis Capital Limited. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Janice, and good evening, everyone. On behalf of Axis Capital, I welcome you all to the Marico Q1 FY21 earnings conference call. We have with us the senior management of the company, represented by Mr. Saugata Gupta, the MD and CEO, Mr. Vivek Karve, CFO, and Pawan Agarwal, EVP and Head Finance and IR. Before we start the call, I would like to remind you that the Q&A session will be for the institutional investors and analysts. And therefore, if there's anybody else who is not an institutional investor or an analyst but would like to ask questions, please directly reach out to Marico's investor relations team. With that, I would like to hand the call over to the management for the opening comments. Thank you, and over to you.
Yeah, hi. Good evening to all those of you who have joined the call. I hope all of you, your friends and family are safe and healthy. We continue to cope with these unusual times with COVID-19 rapidly spreading and severely affecting the lives of every section of our society. We at Marico have been striving to take utmost care to ensure health and safety of our people and are partnering with our associates and other stakeholders to help them navigate through the challenges posed by this pandemic. Marico has pledged already 7 crores to relief activities and is participating in various rehabilitation initiatives. We remain committed to providing the best possible support to the people associated directly or indirectly with Marico at this time. I would start with a quick brief on the quarter gone by and the outlook going forward before I leave the house open to questions. With the extension of the national lockdown in India, April was nearly a complete washout month for most categories other than edible oil, foods and hand sanitizers and coconut oil to a certain extent. We could resume meaningful billing of value-added hair oils much later in the month and recorded almost no sales in premium personal care. However, since then, as restrictions eased, the business has seen a smart recovery in May and June, with overall India volume growth growing by 3% in these 2 months on a year-on-year basis, and we continue to show growth in July this year. Typically, we clock a higher share of the annual revenues in quarter 1, not due to any seasonality in the portfolio, but on account of certain drives taken to start off the year on a positive note and building in momentum for the balance part of the year. However, in FY20, the quarter 1 skew was further accentuated to about 31% because of a good quarter 1 and subdued performance during the rest of the quarter, which was a function of the external environment and a few internal misses in our portfolio and pricing in Q2 and Q3. Since April this year has been an anomaly, as I just explained, comparing a quarter 1 performance with the base quarter will not be the ideal indicator of the underlying demand trends. Therefore, we believe it is pertinent to compare quarter 1 FY21 performance with average monthly run rates of FY20 to get a better sense of where we are. The India business clocked sales at 104% of FY20 average run rate for the quarter, while optically volumes were 14% lower on a YOY basis. We continue to strengthen our market position by gaining market share in more than 90% of our portfolio. We will be extremely aggressive in driving market share gains in all the core and some of the high new tailwind new portfolio this year. As we speak, we have experienced growth in the last 3 months, that is May, June and July, and we are confident that we'll carry the momentum and deliver growth for the balanced part of the year too, provided, of course, the COVID situation doesn't drastically worsen from the current position. Notably, our secondaries have been in line with the primaries, and we have not resorted to the upstocking or distributors of the destocking in the last couple of weeks of March as well as in Q3 previous year. Given the tough macroeconomic environment, we continue to operate at lower distributor inventories to ensure ROIs of our channel partner is optimized, and we will review the option of restocking if at all when the situation improves. Heightened social distancing norm and travel restrictions worked in favor of neighborhood kirana stores and e-commerce, while modern trade has degrown. We are now beginning to see some improvement in modern trade, but would expect the channel to underperform if COVID situation worsens. ESD business was down nearly 50%, Being about 7% of the business, it translates to about 3% volume growth being shaven off. Given reverse migration of labor, government stimulus, good Rabi season and no adverse impact on agricultural output during these times, rural in Q1 grew at 120% of our FY20 monthly run rate, while urban, including alternate channels, was nearly at par. We expect this trend to continue in the event of a normal monsoon season. Delving deeper into the India business, Parachute has clocked at 111% of annual average monthly run rate of FY20. Given the skew and the high 9% base, the brand reported 11% drop in volumes year on year. We have seen very healthy traction in May and June, given that the brand is trusted by consumers for purity and hygiene, attributed which have gained even more significance today, giving them all the more reason to switch to trusted leader brand from Lose Oil. Parachute's latest Untouched by Hand campaign throws light on the hygienic processing and safety credentials of the brand. With copra likely to be mildly bearish, we shall look at passing on the value to our customers in pricing and drive accelerated conversions of Lose Oil, as well as gain market share in view of the lower disposable income in consumers' hand and lower competitive activity amongst the smaller players. In value-added hair oil, the portfolio had a rough start with meaningful billing resuming only in the last week of April and fall in demand for premium oils. However, May and June have seen significantly healthier trends, with the franchise growing in May-June period on a year-on-year basis, led by mid and bottom of pyramid segment. We continue to show some growth in July. We clocked 94% of the last year's run rate, but had a sharp decline on a year-on-year basis. Nihar Shanti Amla Badam continued to gain salience and lead the way for the franchise. Among the newer offerings, Parachute Advanced Aloe Vera also showed promising signs in June and July. In current times, while a consumer wants trusted brands, she may be willing for a lower outlay of spends. Therefore, it is pertinent to be able to offer value to the consumer at lower price points. We shall aggressively engage in pricing and tactical play in the lower unit packs to drive growth. We are encouraged by June offtake data, which suggests that the hair oil category is now tracking ahead of pre-COVID-19 levels, which is December, Jan, Feb. Our three-pronged strategy of gaining market share in the premium segment, driving value in the mid segment, and aggressive pricing in the bottom of pyramid segment shall continue in the near and medium term. Saffola edible oil continued its healthy run, growing 16% in value and volume terms. The strategic shifts in pricing and promotion in the portfolio and effective brand communication over the past few quarters have allowed us to capitalize on the heightened health consciousness and increased in-home cooking. We believe the shift in Saffola's penetration and reach should sustain and will continue to invest towards delivering value to our consumers to build it further, especially with increased cooking at home. However, the potential 20% Saffola growth, which we are expecting, was partly stunted because of CSD and modern trade, which has a high saliency. The base foods business, which is Saffola Oats and Savory Oats, had a robust 41% value growth. Saffola Masala Oats continues to gain salience at an accelerated pace in current times. We will continue innovation of newer flavors to delight our consumers. We have made a fresh foray into immunity within the food segment with the launch of Saffola Honey. Every batch of Saffola Honey undergoes the international standard NMR test, bringing consumer export-grade quality honey free of added sugar and any impurities. The premium personal care portfolios of premium hair nourishment, male grooming and premium skincare recorded sharp declines given the significant fall in discretionary category sales. While some green shoots are there in June, we will lie low and closely monitor these categories to have a sharper near-term outlook and strategy. These categories, however, continue to remain high growth engines from a medium-term perspective as and when things normalize. On the hygiene segment, Medicare hand sanitizer and VeggieClean have started well. We have had some agile launches in House Protect and Table Protect and Keep Safe by Marico, primarily in e-commerce to cater to the need of sanitization. In the current quarter, hygiene portfolio contributed to more than 1.5% of India turnover. Coming to international, the business fared better with a top line growth in 4% and top line down 4% in constant currency terms, supported by a sturdy 10% constant currency growth in Bangladesh despite the state of lockdown in the country. The non-coconut oil portfolio in Bangladesh continues to grow in high double digits. For supporting the needs of health and hygiene, Marico Bangladesh has launched Medica Safe Life hand sanitizer and hand wash. We have also introduced Medica Safe Life Veggie Wash, a fruit and vegetable cleanser. Further broadening of the personal care play, we launched Parachute Natural Shampoo in 3 variants, Nourishing Care, Damage Repair and Anti-Hair Fall. Vietnam has been probably the least affected countries in the world and business is gradually coming back to normal. Offtakes in discretionary personal care have been slow, but we are optimistic of a recovery going forward. On the other hand, the pandemic-led restrictions has further weakened the macros for MENA and South Africa. We remain cautious on this business in the near term, but will be aggressive on cost management to keep them afloat. And we believe, based on the current trends, the situation of decline is improving in these markets in June and July. A&P spends was at 7.1% of sales as we rationalize spends in the discretionary portfolio and we are able to attain the desired share of voice and impact more effectively. There was a visible shift in spends from non-media to media channels, a trend that will continue in the near term. Spends in April were minimal given the circumstances, but we continue to invest in growth in the core portfolio in light of the improving traction during the rest of the year. So to give you a perspective, the core portfolio spends in May and June was at 90% of near levels. All the cuts were mostly in the discretionary part of the portfolio and to the non-media part of the portfolio. In addition, we also rationalized trade spends accordingly. Keeping a tight control on cost fixed overheads was lower than last year, excluding one-offs. As a result, EBITDA margins was up 300 basis points. With A&P and trade spend likely to perk up, we expect operating margins to be 20% plus for the rest of the year. To summarize, a larger trend that we have seen so far is that staples and select tailwind categories have done well, while discretionary FMCG has suffered. We saw some of them recovering in June. Steadily improving trends is testament to the inherent strength of our core franchises. We will build the hygiene portfolio with a significant acceleration in e-commerce and digital spends. In hygiene, we believe the key to success in this overcrowding category is differentiation, and we will continue to build this keeping this in mind. We expect the hygiene business to be shaping up into a 80 to 100 crore portfolio for us this year. We also aim to make a quantum leap in foods, and we will eye bigger tailwind categories with market share gain opportunities instead of getting into niches and creating categories. With more in the pipeline for this year, we expect to clock 300 to 350 crores of food business this year in the overall food segment and then gun for 500 crore business in foods in 2021-22. Availability, agility, strong brands and rural distribution are going to be the sources of competitive advantage. With a series of fresh lockdown in various areas, Q2 may turn out to be more volatile in Q1, but we are geared up for times to come. We expect to post growth for balance of the year and will strive to end flattish at annual level vis-a-vis last year, provided the COVID situation doesn't drastically worsen. The crisis has presented opportunities for us to structurally reset certain costs with newer ways of working, including working from home, automation, smaller assortment. Further, with SKU rationalization and spend rationalization, we are effecting a huge cost transformation across the company. The significant cost leverage generated by mindly bearish input costs and cost transformation shall be channelized into defending and gaining market share. On the international front, while Bangladesh is on a firm footing, we will focus on the rest of the markets to steady the ship and broad-based growth. We see these growth trends in most of these markets in July. To be one of the key building blocks in our journey. In these unconventional working conditions, ensuring that motivation and engagement levels stay high has gained even more significance. In this direction, we have been working with our members through a variety of engagement sessions and facilitating medical and emotional well-being through professional aid. We are pleased to be recognized amongst India's 5 best workplaces in FMCG as per Great Place to Work Institute and featured in the top 25 most desirable companies to work for in India across all sectors. Before I conclude, I would like to say that we have been fairly resilient so far and we shall continue to adapting to the dynamic environment and any deep-rooted changes that the pandemic may bring in consumer behavior. I would like to congratulate the entire team in particular the frontline members in sales, manufacturing and supply chain, for the exceptional level of grit, agility and spirit of collaboration that they continue to exhibit. It is this passion that enables Marico to keep punching above its weight, even in the face of unprecedented changes. Lastly, I would like to use this forum to thank Vivek for his immense contribution to the Marico growth journey for the last 20 years. He has been a great colleague and has been instrumental in shaping great standards of transparency in investor communication, ethics and governance at Marico. We wish him all the best in his new assignment, and he leaves a legacy and a worthy successor in Pawan. Thank you for your patient listening, and we are happy to take questions.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the question answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handset while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. We take the first question from the line of Abneesh Roy from Edelweiss. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Saugata. My first question is on the hair oil consumption. What is the impact of work from home? Because a lot of the Indians use hair oil for grooming, styling purpose also. And although lockdown would have ended formally, but still work from home is continuing. And second, earlier Q1 was supposed to be the start of the recovery of WAHO. Obviously, unfortunately, COVID has happened. Now, where do you see? When do you see the recovery in WAHO?
So, if you look at work from home and COVID, first of all, I think as per the data, as I had talked in my commentary, the offtake seems to have gone back into pre-COVID levels of December, Jan, Feb, and June. As regards our consumer trends, what we are noticing, only the premium part of which is the non-sticky hair oil, which is used for post-wash and used for setting and outdoor usage. Most of the in-home consumption or pre-wash consumption of hair oils is in fact increased. As regards WAHO recovery, I mentioned in the commentary that we have grown WAHO in May and June, and the July trends is also showing a growth.
Saugata, one of the other hair oil companies said that in July, last 10 days has been quite tough because again lockdown sporadically has restarted. So are you also seeing a similar trend?
So I think the lockdown is not for hair oil, for all companies. I think it has got impacted. As I said, that quarter 2 will be a little more tricky than quarter 1 in terms of far more localized lockdowns, and therefore we need to be far more agile and resilient. And then the fact that the supply chain, especially availability at the last mile as opposed to, so I believe that I think in terms of if you maintain the same kind of agility and the supply chain effectiveness, I think it's a question of whose brands are more available and therefore gain market share. And therefore, yes, you are right that quarter 2 will be little more volatile than quarter 1.
So, the one follow-up was that if you see, there is some bit of seasonality in hair oil consumption in terms of weather impact, temperature or festival. And most other companies in Q1 results have given May-June comparison with May-June last year. You have given the comparison on a run rate basis. So wanted to understand why run rate is the right method. And in terms of June, how do we compare to June of last year across the 3 subsegments?
I thought we said that, I have already mentioned in the commentary, Abneesh, that May-June we have grown 3% versus last year. So I have given you that perspective, and June and July also we have grown in all the categories, most of the categories. As regards run rate, as I explained, that the reason we talked about run rate is for us, Q2 and Q3 were slightly soft because of both external and internal reasons. And in Q4, as you know, there was COVID and the March quarter. Therefore, run rate is a better way of looking at it. Having said that, as I said that in May, June, we have grown 3% overall, and most of the portfolios have been growing other than the discretionary part of the portfolio where we continue to face challenges. And seasonality in hair oils is for cooling, which is, as far as cooling oil is concerned, there's a seasonality in summer, but we don't participate in that category.
Right. My last question is on Saffola.
So the base is much softer versus Q4. Q4 base was 18%, on which 25% growth was there. This time 3% was the base. We grew a healthy 16%. If I see other food players, for example, biscuits, in fact, accelerated to 22% growth in Q1 versus flat in Q4. If you see even ITC, foods plus essentials grew at 34%. Just want to understand Saffola, yes, impact of modern trade, impact of CSD you have called out. But is there any more reason why the growth should slow down on a much softer base?
I think in quarter 4 there was a little bit of pantry loading. I don't think the soft base is, I don't think the base was anything softer, because you have to see the absolute KL and not the previous year, this one. So I don't think the base matters. So you have to see the run rate sequentially, and therefore I would think that we could have hit 20% plus if the CSD and CSD, as you know, was down 48%, and also modern trade because of certain factors, and modern trade and this one Saffola has a certain skew. But I don't think you can't look at the base that way, because that 16 to 20, 15 to 24 journey, or we were clocking last year quarter 4 maybe 15 to 16% before Jan Feb, and it shot up to 24 because there was a pantry loading that happened in Q4. But in no way in terms of the average run rate there is in fact the Saffola run rate we have mentioned is around 116% of the last year's average run rate. So I think even if you consider the base and Saffola started growing, we are doing pretty well.
So, okay, Saffola, that's all from me. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. We take the next question from the line of Manoj Menon from ICICI Securities. Please go ahead.
Hi team, I have only 2 questions. I really don't have 2 questions and ended up asking probably 4. Okay, so the first is, on Saffola and Parachute, wherein we are one on Saffola, where there is this opportunity, where you are gaining from the work from home or whatever, people are staying at home. And same thing in Parachute, where, the Untouched by Hand campaign, which is one of the rare opportunities for you to actually present the brand in front of the consumer on ATL. The question here is, Saugata, in your assessment, I'm using the word assessment because I'm not sure whether realistically any market research is possible in the last 3 months. What is the household penetration increase, and how much, let's say as an analyst, I should, assume as DCF value accretive, gains what you have got? What I'm essentially trying to understand is, in a normalized scenario, 12 months down the line, whatever benefit we are seeing actually will fade away, and there is a scenario, that in 9 months' time, Saffola will actually decline in a normalized way of living. How do I think about, the actual household penetration growth currently on these 2 brands?
So let me first handle the Parachute question. I think Parachute, everybody wants to use a brand like Parachute. It's a very aspirational brand. Those who are either the consumers who are using local brands or the consumers who are moving from unbranded. I think the biggest this one is the price premium, and of course distribution. Now obviously we have a distribution advantage, and we also are ensuring that all the cost savings that are being channelized towards Parachute pricing, and our net pricing, if we have to give you a perspective, we have taken a 5 to 6% cut in Parachute pricing. It is not in absolute pricing but through promotional pricing. Now we believe that this is a great opportunity to permanently reset in terms of market share. See, you must realize that we compete with a lot of smaller players. Some other players also are interested maybe in gaining market share. I think this is an opportunity just not through Parachute, but some of our flanker brands to significantly increase our market share. And obviously, and some of that impact of that market share will be permanent. I don't think if we can play the pricing and the distribution, and as you know, also the second thing which we are doing, we realize that with the COVID times and also a general dilution of wholesale as a channel, direct distribution, especially in rural, is the way forward. And therefore, we believe that most of the market share gains will be permanent. As regards Saffola, I think it's 2 things which have played. On one end, a section of loyal consumers have obviously started using Saffola more because they are consuming more oil. But secondly, as I said, that there has been a significant loss in volumes also in CSD and modern trade. Now, those 2 are actually going to neutralize once COVID situation normalizes. And I think the fundamental work which we have done in Saffola, whether the tweaking of the pricing, tweaking of the promotion, the new communication, everything, I think fundamentally the 10% embedded growth is here to stay.
Wow. Okay, understood. So when you say 10%, that confidence comes from a certain visibility on whether it is higher usage, habits changing. That's exactly your...
No. The 10% is a question of, that has to go in penetration. That higher usage, as I said, that in a post-COVID world, if people go back, there are two things will happen. I think one is obviously people will go back to, will the permanent shift happen to eating out? I'm not so sure. Secondly, as I said, that when normalization happens, we are definitely more advantaged in a modern trade, and the fact that we also hope that CSD will come back to normal. So therefore, these two factors will neutralize each other. And therefore, there is no reason to believe that this entire Saffola growth that has happened is going to happen only because of some small set of consumers doing much more in-home cooking. The penetration is also going to increase. As I said, that one of the factors on Saffola increasing volume growth, which has exhibited in the previous year, Q3, Q4, was the right pricing, right communication strategy. So penetration is also increasing. It's just not, we are stagnant at penetration and only the entire growth is based on household consuming more Saffola, which will vanish in a post-COVID world.
Understood. And that's very clear, actually. And allow me a lighter question. That's only second one which I have. When I look at some of the new brands which have launched, Keep Safe, House Protect, Travel Protect, you know what? You guys have done a brilliant job in terms of getting some generic words actually as brands. Just curious to understand, the thought process which went behind this.
So I think, we were not in a position to extend all our existing brands into the category. So therefore, when you try to establish a new brand quickly, I think if the brand name suggests the benefit, I think half of your job is done.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All the best, Saugata and team, actually. I think I genuinely felt as a consumer that, the brand names communicate what I really wanted to see as a consumer. And I think the job is 80% done there. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. We take the next question from the line of Arnab Mitra from Credit Suisse. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi Saugata. My question was on the trade pipelines. So I think you clearly mentioned that at the distributor level, there has been no upstocking after the destocking which happened. But given that you were not able to supply a lot of products in 3-4 weeks, the trade pipelines would have got depleted because offtakes kept happening through end of March, early April. So in that context, this 3-4% growth in May, June, or let's say even in July, does it give you confidence that it can continue? Because there would have definitely been some restocking in the normal trade channels, given the depletion which would have happened.
Yeah, there are two ways of looking at it. One, yes, I think the existing outlets, there would have been then that only would be some part of, the VAHO portfolio and some Parachute, because Parachute we continued to sell in, especially in the south where the situation on COVID was pretty stable in April, May. Having said that, we are unable to, if I was servicing regularly 100 outlets, we are now being able to regularly service also 70 to 75 outlets. So I think we are unable to service regularly 25 to 30% of the outlets. Now there, we have not been able to stock. So I would say that we have managed to do this number with covering 70% of the outlets, covering with SKUs which started off with 40%, we are working now with 70 to 80% SKUs. And number three, you have to take it also into consideration that a significant decline has happened in CSD and modern trade. So the GT growth is far higher than that 3%.
Sure. That makes sense. And the second question was on the launch of honey. So if you could, just talk through the rationale and how you kind of hope to differentiate versus the leading brand here. And also, is this given that you're launching in the middle of COVID, you don't have a lot of tools like modern trade visibility or, promoter sampling and things like that. Is it a challenge to launch a completely new category in this environment, or you think there are some actually positives which may help you in this COVID kind of situation?
I would not like to get into the strategy and differentiation. I think let that play out in the market. But all I can tell you is that I think Saffola is a very strong health equity. And this category is on health and immunity, and therefore Saffola is a very strong brand. So therefore, anything on health on Saffola, I think there is a credential. Number two is we are looking, as I said, there's a shift in our approach to food. If we have taken on the ambition of having a 500 crore food business by the end of 21-22, we need to look at categories which are tailwind, categories which have critical mass, categories with one single incumbent with high market share and then the rest being fragmented, where a Saffola or a strong brand can play with some differentiation.
Sure. Okay. Thanks. That's it from my side.
With modern trade, your concerns, I think I would not think so, because this is a known category. You need promoters and merchandisers perhaps when you are doing category creation.
Okay. Thanks. That's from my side.
Thank you. We take the next question from the line of Percy Panthaki from IIFL. Please go ahead.
Hi, Swagata and team. Good evening. My first question is on the VAHO portfolio. So just wanted to dig a little deeper on that. See, in VAHO, unlike some of our competition, which is purely positioned on styling, our VAHO portfolio has a fair degree of nourishment with the Parachute Advanced and Parachute Jasmine, etc. It's like these brands are a combination of nourishment and to some extent styling, whereas hair and care is obviously almost completely styling, but that's a small part of your portfolio. So given that, I can understand that if people are not going outside the house, then obviously the demand for styling will be down, but the demand for nourishment is not affected by that, right? So I just wanted to understand why we have such a big decline in this portfolio. And also you mentioned that May and June have not declined for VAHO. So for a 30% decline for the full quarter, mathematically April will have to be zero or even negative. What am I missing out in this?
No, so also depends on last year's April contribution, April, May, June. But we hardly sold in April. We started selling only in the last week of April. And as I said, that if you look at the annual run rate last year, I think we are at 94-95% of the annual run rate. And if you look at the quarterly growth rates of VAHO last year, it was 7% in quarter 1, 0 in quarter 2, -7 in quarter 3, and -11 in quarter 4, which ended up with a -2 for the full year. So therefore, if you are at 94% of the run rate and for the full quarter, if I had to dive deeper in May and June, it would have been significantly above 100%, which includes some pipeline filling, obviously. So I think as regards the balance 3 quarters, the required run rate to even go flat is around, it's not much. So in that context, given the fact that we started deteriorating in VAHO because of some of the issues, as I said, there were issues in 2-3 brands, and there was also lack of participation in bottom of pyramid. Bottom of pyramid will be very aggressively participating. And as far as the 2-3 brands are concerned, I think 2 have already got relatively fixed and 1 is almost getting fixed. So I think we are in a much better place in VAHO, but I think we have to show that result over the next 2-3 quarters. I think we should be flattish definitely to slight growth maybe in quarter 2, but Q3, Q4 there should be definite chances of delivering growth in Q3 and Q4. But then let me first give you the results rather than telling you something right now.
Understood. And secondly, just wanted to understand on the copra cycle and margins there. Do you think for the full year, on account of copra, there can be any gross margin expansion that you can see?
I think our endeavor will be to get a permanent reset in market share in Parachute and coconut oil, and therefore any copra depletion and price and deflation will pass it in terms of pricing. I think we have given a broad idea about the margins. while we have done whatever we have done in quarter one, we will strive to deliver 20% plus in the Q2, Q3, Q4 balanced 3 quarters.
Right, sir. And lastly, on the foods business, 500 crores target by FY22. That seems to be a pretty ambitious target. You are currently at around somewhere 200, right?
Last year base is 200. Our quarter one run rate is 30-35. So with this run rate, if we maintain, that takes us to around 270-280. We have launched honey. We might see some new launches in the next 3 months. So 300 is very much in reaching distance, and then we'll see how the year ends. So yes, it is ambitious, but we believe that there are 2 things. One is a shift in our strategy to chase tailwind large categories instead of trying to create niche categories. Saffola is an extremely strong brand, and I think in a post-COVID world and a current situation, in-home consumption and consumption of healthy food and healthy habits, in terms of people wanting healthy snacking on in-home eating will continue. So, and we now have I think we broke even in foods 2 years ago, and we now know at least, which is very, very critical in terms of managing supply chain and cost structure in foods.
Right. So Pratim, if you could just give some kind of flavor, this 500 crores, how much of that will be from products which were not present in FY20?
Again, I don't want to give you this one, but as I said, the base whatever we have been last year also grew 20% plus. This year we are growing today. The base products are growing at 40% this quarter, the oats. So I think there is very much legs the base products to get itself to go at that 20-30%, which itself means that the base itself will be around 300 to 350 crores by 2022.
Understood. That's all from me. Thanks and all the best.
Thank you. We take the next question from the line of Tejas Shah from Spark Capital. Please go ahead.
Hi, Swagata and team. Thanks for the opportunity. Couple of questions. So first, Swagata, if you can elaborate on 2 observations made in the investor update, that there is an accelerated upgradation from coconut hair oil from loose to branded, and then VAHO healthy traction has been observed in the bottom of the pyramid segment. So this is kind of counterintuitive to the macroeconomic environment that we are observing right now.
No, not really. I think it's a function of the ability. See, people are wanting trusted, safe brands. And I think in the case of coconut oil, people want a trusted brand. And number 2 is, I think companies with large companies having the agility to distribute and having a supply chain assurance, I think it's a source of competitive advantage. Since we compete with a lot of small players, their ability to distribute, and so the combination of a consumer pull plus availability, a combination of that is happening. In the case of bottom of pyramid in VAHO, it's a different issue where we believe that a significant amount of activity is happening at the bottom of pyramid in the case of especially in north and some parts of east and the country, where there's a conversion that happens from loose mustard to value-added hair oil. And because of organized players participating in that will accelerate that conversion. And this year, I believe that a lot of small players, because of supply chain, working capital and distribution, because they distribute a lot through wholesale, they're going to struggle this year.
Sure. So if I understood correctly, in coconut hair oil, it is largely consumer-led, and in VAHO, it could be supply-led as well, which is leading to this consolidation.
It will be a combination of both. Because I think availability, if we are trying to drive far more availability, it has to be both, because the consumer has to get the right price and the brand has to be available. So we have to, as you know, Parachute, for example, the rural market share is in the 40s, while urban market share is around 60%. Rural market share is 46. So there's a huge opportunity, but our pricing has to be right and we have to distribute. People will want a trusted brand, which is untouched by hand and hygienic.
Sure. This was helpful. Second, just one clarification. You mentioned that 90% of the portfolio gained market share. So is it on Nielsen basis or some other source? Because some other company said that Nielsen data is not available for the quarter.
So Nielsen data is available for the quarter, so is the other basis. In both, we are seeing gaining market share. What we quoted is a MAC number because obviously the quarter number, quarter on quarter might not be that stable. In quarter, our market share gains are slightly higher, but we don't want to take credit for that because the data might not be stable. So we are quoting on a MAC basis.
Sure.
Then at least 9 months get neutralized in some way.
Sure.
So we have checked from both sources, and both sources are showing the same results mostly.
Great. That's all from my side, and all the best.
I think to be fair, just to conclude, I think it's better to, I think the retail audit will be more stable in the next quarter. I mean, this quarter going onwards.
Yes, I thought as much. That's all from my side. Thanks.
Thank you. We take the next question from the line of Vivek Maheshwari from Jefferies. Please go ahead.
Hi, good evening, everyone. A few questions, Saugata. Firstly, in your opening remarks, you mentioned something like, first quarter is 30%, not just because of seasonality, but also because of, because you wanted to start on a positive note. I just didn't understand what exactly you meant. Sorry.
So last year, if you see quarter one, we had a very high growth in quarter one. We had so if you look at the volume growth of quarter one, we grew 6% in quarter one, 1% in quarter two, -1% in quarter three, and quarter four was -3%. So we started off with a very strong note. We had a very average Q2 and Q3 because of partly internal reasons, partly external reasons. And Q4, compared to the industry, we were better off, but still it was minus. As a result, your 31% was last year's skew was heavy towards quarter one, which is not going to be the case this year because I don't foresee a lot of issues internal. We have, I think we have tackled. And number two is it gets into the base of the lower. So there will be a lower base in Q2, Q3 and Q4. That's what I had meant.
I see. Okay. And I know this question was asked to you about, July and upstocking, and you have clarified that. But my other question on that piece is, when you, by your own admission, say that, second quarter can be highly volatile, why would you not upstock? So, I mean, in our channel checks, July month has been a bit weakish for the reasons, of vertical lockdown and all. But companies, the tendency is to actually stock up at the distributor level so that, the market can still be fed because the grocery outlets should still be working. So what is your stance? Because, fourth and first quarter, there has been a decent decline in your, top line, which means that, there is a potential to push up inventory at the channel in case if the situation goes out of control in certain micro markets.
I think when I talk about upstocking, I'm talking of an overall quarter. So obviously, if there are some localized need, we will upstock. Having said that, also, if you know that in the most of the metros, we are experimenting with a third-party supply chain directly supplying to outlets. So therefore, that stocking doesn't happen necessarily at the distributor point. So professional logistics firms directly supply outlets in most of our metros.
Okay, so that being the case, I mean, there will be enough inventory is what you're trying to say in case.
Yeah, so that inventory will be more at that node rather than at the distributor node. And as you know, we struggled with our urban GTM ROI last year, and that is one of the things we did. And I think COVID has accelerated it, and therefore we believe that it is better to, given the current situation, to have distributors who are happy with their ROIs rather than give credit and stock more. But I don't think, but should the need arise on stocking, I don't think we will be shying away from that. But overall, on the average, on the quarter level, we tend to neutralize it. So I think the good thing that happens, Vivek, I think just to also clarify is at least you are getting a 48-hour notice or 72-hour notice for a lockdown. So that is good enough time for the necessary to actually upstock if necessary. But in a general, this one, we might not want to keep it upstocked.
I see. Okay, sure. And Saugata, why is Bangladesh so different? If apologies, I don't know much about the landscape there. But if the lockdown was as stringent, why is the business cycle very different over there compared to India?
No, I think two things. I think we have done relatively well, but more than that, even when the lockdown was there, they allowed businesses to run. So we didn't have there was like the stoppage of I think most of the factories and this one I think when most of the times I think the disruption in business was slightly low.
Okay. Okay. And lastly, I know you will not comment about, where you want to foray into, but I mean, I just go back to in Saffola. I remember, I think the rice brand name was a rice at, a few years back, and there was Saffola Atta mixes. I don't know if those are still around, but do you think some of those innovations were perhaps early at that point of time, and there is a case to look at those products?
See, the problem with commodities and staples are you don't get margin. So anything we want to enter with Saffola has to be a margin accretive to the base edible oil because those business models are based on high scale. So I believe whether it's in immunity or some other areas, there are enough categories which are typically say 600, 700 crores with single incumbent or opportunity for differentiation. I would rather do that. So one of the things, as I said, we are deviating from is our fascination to create niches and growing multiple niches because category creation takes a lot of time and it doesn't give you scale. I think that's a significant shift we want to do in foods, and we, I believe, was under leveraging the potential of the brand Saffola on anything which is healthy in foods, and health also includes immunity.
Absolutely. Just a follow-up on that. So, I totally agree. But my simple question is, if that is the case, even if something is margin dilutive, but if it is positive contribution, what's the harm if you, to leverage Saffola brand and then build further from there?
Yeah. So I think, see, just to take a case of rice, since you have taken the rice is also not a level playing field. All the basmatis of the world might not be basmati, And those kind of commodities, we don't want to get into commodities because that is something which we believe there are enough other categories where you can enjoy better margin and scope for differentiation. In this case, I know there could be one is you have to then get wholeheartedly into huge supply chain scale advantages, which we might not have the right now. It will take time to build that capability. Whether to get into, if you go into branded staples, that requires huge back-end capability, which might take time. We are looking at categories which are slightly more urban-centric. We are slightly more higher gross margin. So that is the kind of choice we have done. Now, having crossed the 500 crores, suppose if we cross, maybe our framework will change and we'll be ambitious enough to take on something more.
Perfect. Thank you. Wish you all the best. 500 crore number indeed is an interesting number without, some of these products. So wishing you all the very best for that.
Thank you. We take the next question from the line of Harit Kapoor from Investec. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, good evening. So I just had two questions. Firstly, on the distribution side, I mean, you emphasized on direct distribution as well as increasing on the rural side. So could you just talk a little bit about plans for F21 in terms of where direct distribution is right now and how do you kind of plan to move that forward into the next 12, 18 months, especially on rural?
So I think if you look at two things we are doing. One is we are increasing the footprint in our direct distribution in terms of converting a lot of stockist towns and sub-stockist towns to direct. We are going state by state where we believe we are under-penetrated. Secondly, I think we also believe that wholesale as a channel, especially in urban too, I think it is going to reduce its saliency. Therefore, we have also ensured in terms of our spend, in terms of our, in terms of our spend or in terms of our trade spends, we balance that. And our overall experience suggests that now that we are also playing with a BOP portfolio, we have Nihar Shanti Jasmine. We are going to play more aggressively in Sarso. We have Shanti Amla already at 10 rupees. Plus we have a couple of maybe one or two plans in the pipeline. So we believe now that we have a BOP portfolio, that also gives, a kind of a fillip that there's a critical mass of, earlier it was only Shanti Amla. And now we have 3 brands at least at a 10 rupee price point, and maybe we want to add some more. That will give us a significant, kind of a critical mass of portfolio to go into. It is just not distribution, but you need the portfolio.
Yeah, got it. Just to add on to that, so for quarter one, for example, how much would have rural now contributed to your number? I mean, I understand it was around that 35% number, but would it be a
rural, as
significantly
you know, grew in terms of in terms of run rate. And just to give you a point, that I would think it would have added at least 1 or 2 percentage points in quarter one. So both e-com and rural added a couple of percentage points in contribution in Q1.
My second and last question, was on the introduction of the shampoo in Bangladesh. So, is this, do we look at this more as an extension of your, thought process on Saffola in India, that you're looking at non-niche but slightly larger opportunities, and probably that could be a template for even personal care in India going forward, or am I just reading too much into it?
No, I think the way we look at it is that as a company, we believe that we don't want to get into red oceans. And when I define a red ocean is a typically highly penetrated category dominated by 3 incumbents having 70 to 80% market share. So shampoo in India might not fit into our strategy. The market structure in Bangladesh is different.
Mm-hmm. Got it. That's it from me. Thanks and all the best.
We take the next question from the line of Aditya Soman from Goldman Sachs. Please go ahead.
Hi, good evening. So my first question is, in terms of e-commerce, what is the sort of contribution from e-commerce, and would it be fair, or to what extent has the sort of losses in modern trade been offset by e-commerce, given that we've seen some of the other companies seeing quite a significant acceleration in e-commerce?
So e-commerce, last year was 5%, this quarter has been 7%, but we believe that e-commerce has the potential to significantly grow. I think there are two opportunities which we are looking at. One is that while discretionary categories are impacted overall, we believe with digital spends and e-commerce, there is still a significant portion of people who are going to buy through e-commerce. Also, a significant amount of personal care is also being brought from chemists because beauty outlets are closed. Secondly, if you look at the modern trade losses, there are two kinds of modern trade.
होल्ड वर ठेवला आहे. कृपया लाईनवरच राहा. The person you are speaking with has put your...
Hello?
So you may please go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. So there are two kinds of consumers who come to modern trade. One is a consumer who has switched to e-commerce. And this is the consumer who buys a lot of assortment, and they are the top end consumer. There is also a significant value seeking consumer who comes to certain modern trade channels. Now they are not necessarily buying through e-commerce, they might be buying through general trade, and therefore the task is to provide that same value in general trade to capture that consumer.
No, understand, very clear. And just to follow up on that, so when we've seen sort of a deterioration in modern trade and CSD, but could that also mean that some of the competitive intensity has been lower, given that we see, especially for a brand like Saffola, you see a lot of competition, and then consumers can actually compare pricing on the shelf, or similarly in e-commerce? Would that be a fair assessment, or do you think?
Actually, Saffola has suffered because Saffola had a far higher saliency in modern trade. Modern trade share of Saffola is far higher than in general trade.
All right. And in terms of the overall size of SKUs, you had indicated last time that there was some increase in SKU size as you prioritize the larger packs. Has this now normalized in 1Q, or are you still seeing larger SKUs for Saffola in particular being sold?
So we started, I think, normalizing towards May, June. Having said that, we are making, right now we are manufacturing, and if you look at May and June, we went up to 70% of the SKUs. In end June, we might have gone to 90, but we are looking at SKU rationalization again to make the supply chain far more agile, because we believe that, as I talked about, that quarter 2 will be volatile, continue to be volatile. So that SKU rationalization will continue. Having said that, the shift that was earlier done to maximize productivity, I think we have now realized that we will have to focus on the small packs given the consumer outlay and the consumer disposable income is challenged. So we will look at more of the tail of SKUs across categories, especially discretionary. But in the case of most of the core, we will continue to manufacture all SKUs.
No, fair enough. Very clear. And just one last one, if I may slip in. On Saffola, any sort of intention to sort of drive more promotions or take price cuts, given that I think if I compare it online or even at GT, I see that some of your brands are still priced higher than competition.
So again, Saffola is a brand which people aspire to. We will continue to provide consumer value, and should there be a need for pricing, we will do that. But we shall not do something which the volume growth is not sustainable in terms of, so because we believe in sustainable, profitable growth, and therefore we will, while we will look at definitely, especially in now because people are, wanting to go for a trusted brand and we have to make it affordable. So I think end consumer price is something we will look at. So if you look at Saffola in the last 2 years, we have actually taken significant cuts in end consumer price by rationalizing all promotion and trade spend. So that will be the direction we'll continue to go in.
No, all right. That's very clear. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We take the next question from the line of Kunal Vora from BNP Paribas. Please go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the opportunity. Can you provide some more insights about your new brands, Keep Safe, House Protect, etc.? Have these products been developed in-house, and how are you looking to promote these brands? Will it be digital only, or would you also look to launch them in modern trade?
So just to give a broad this one, VeggieClean and sanitizer is across all channels. As far as home or house and travel protect and Keep Safe is concerned, right now it will be more restricted to digital in terms of e-com and modern trade, but we will see as it pans out. But as far as GT, we have started distributing far more the VeggieClean and sanitizer. We have to look at more differentiated spaces because everybody has launched sanitizer. I think it's important that we have also launched. It has contributed 1.5% the entire portfolio, but we would like to look at more differentiated spaces and just not tactically participate in the category.
And are most of these products developed in-house?
Yeah, they are in-house, yeah.
Sure. And second and last question, regarding the medium-term growth aspiration of 13 to 15%, do you believe there is a need to revise it downwards considering the state of the economy and low inflation, etc.? Do you think it can be achieved anytime soon?
So, I would think I gave a 3 to 5 year horizon kind of a number. But yeah, you are right. If this situation, I think, if this COVID situation continues, and it all depends on what is the bounce back that happens in 21-22 in terms of when is the vaccine developed, when is normalization come and the economy bounces back. Should there be a delay, obviously there could be a cause to revise that number.
Sure. That's it from my side. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. We take the next question from the line of Amit Sinha from Macquarie. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi sir. Thanks for the opportunity. My first question is on cost savings part, and you mentioned that you have initiated aggressive cost savings both in India and the international business. So just wanted to understand what are the areas where you are working on this, and is there any target which you are working with for this year?
Yeah, so just to give you a perspective, there are no holy cows to cost except on 3 or 4 things. We will not compromise on safety. We will not, at least in India, we have committed to not protect jobs and salaries. We will continue to invest behind leadership capability and innovation. Otherwise, everything else is up for grabs. We do have a target and it is reasonably significant, and we hope to channelize some of it. Having said that, I think in the international markets, however, the cost transformation is far more structural, which will also may include the operating model in some of the markets. While in India, while we are not tinkering with operating model, there are enough cost levers, and some of them will be, I think, permanent resets. For example, whether it is some people working from home, some things on permanent automation, go-to market. We have looked at a lot of things in marketing spend. So I think this opportunity, COVID or otherwise, has given us an opportunity to question every cost and look at a reset in terms of cost. So, and we believe that will be plowed back a significant portion towards consumer pricing and investment behind growth in whether it's in foods or hygiene and behind the core.
Sure. Okay. So basically, at this point of time, you are not giving any target or anything like that. Some of the companies they indicate, so that's why I asked this.
No, we do have a target. We have a project name. Both are there, but we don't want to talk about it right now.
Sure. Okay. Thanks. My second question is on your A&P spend, and just wanted to understand how should we look at it, especially this year. Given that some of the non-media related spends this year will anyways be less, in fact significantly less. So, from a perspective that last year you spent around 10% of sales in A&P, this year that number should be significantly lower.
So, first let me give you a flavor of the quarter one A&P. I think it's important because we have not done sharp squeeze in spends or something like that. But what we have done is very simple. We didn't advertise largely in April other than a little bit in foods. That takes out straight away 33%. And as you know, also April is very expensive otherwise and clutter this one because of the historic IPL that is there. So we advertised core, we actually spend up to 90%, almost 80 to 90%. So we didn't dilute on core, and we cut significantly spends on discretionary, very, very significantly. Also, a lot of spend that was cut with regard to visibility, with regard to merchandising, with regard to a lot of A&P spends on promoters and experience marketing, out of home, print. So these are the things. Now, you are absolutely right. Some of them will not come back this year. I don't see promoters in modern trade coming because of social distancing. I don't need too much merchandising because of social distancing. So some of it will be permanent knockoff. So if you put everything together, I would think another 100 to 150 basis points reduction for the balance year, because it will not be so significant, the cuts which happened in Q1, but at the balance year you can see 100 to 150 basis points reduction. Having said that, the way we are doing it, there is no reduction in share of voice or in terms of impact in terms of core is concerned. Now, if the new products, which is hygiene and foods, require investment and traction, we should be able to prepare to spend. That's why I'm giving you a number of 100 to 150 depending on how the thing pans out.
That's very clear, sir. Thanks and all the best.
Thank you. We take the next question from the line of Karthik Chellappa from Buena Vista Fund. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. There are two questions. On the Parachute coconut oil in the quarter, have you seen any conspicuous shift in the mix? By mix, I mean the share of 50 ml versus 100 ml versus 200 ml versus the normal run rate?
So, to be very frank, we were actually focusing only on large packs in the first 2 months because of our production constraint. Having said that, we are now seeing a significant traction in the small pack.
If that is the case, isn't there a risk of some sort of volume slippage in the following quarters because if people have upstocked the 300 ml bottle, the frequency of visits may just come down. So do you see a risk to that?
You must also see the distribution in April was also very, very unstable. We started our full distribution also in May and June.
Okay, got it. And my last question is, how much of the expansion in margins in the international market is just explained by geographical mix that Bangladesh did better than the rest?
It's a combination of that and cost structure. We are continuing to work on cost structure in all the are the rest of the markets. In fact, all currently there's a cost transformation exercise, as I explained, unlike India, where we have committed that we are not changing operating model, we are looking at everything. In the non-Bangladesh markets and Bangladesh, we are looking at also the basic cost structure. So there are cost transformation exercises happening as we speak in all the international markets.
Got it. Okay, thank you very much, and wish you and the team all the very best.
Thank you. We take the next question from the line of Nikunj Doshi from Bay Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Nikunj from Bay Capital. First of all, wanted to wish all the best to Vivek in his new endeavor, and also want to welcome Pawan in his new role. So good luck to Pawan as well. And the one thing I wanted to ask was this last year we introduced new premium products. So what are we doing to that portfolio? Are we continuing, or we are putting it on back burner for some time? And secondly, on this hygiene products, will it be margin accretive?
Yeah. So first, as regards the personal care products are concerned, as I said, we will continue to support it in digital, and we will wait for the market to normalize. It's not that we are abandoning that category. And within the personal care also, we believe that there is enough opportunity in two brands, the LUP of male grooming and of course Livon, because there is a lot of do-it-yourself DIY trend, and Livon gives you salon finish hair at home. So I think, so therefore we are not completely abandoning, but having said that, the focus is much more selling through digital e-commerce, because that consumer still doesn't have an issue on disposable income and will continue to consume it. Our medium-term aspiration on premiumization of the portfolio stays intact. Having said that, we are unwilling to, and this is just not it is not just consumer thing, it is also complexity in the supply chain, it is complexity in the sales system, and therefore given it is a far more uphill climb, and we have a very, very robust core which is doing well, and also health and hygiene and foods, we thought given management bandwidth, especially current situation being limited, we are just keeping it in abeyance for the rest of the channels and the rest of the things, and as long as situation normalizes, people will want to look good, and therefore there is no reason why we will not start investing behind them. But this year, definitely we are not going to significantly invest behind them.
But Cocosol and Pitify range of products.
So Cocosol, again, we have sharply rationalized the portfolio. This quarter we couldn't manufacture because they were all smaller 3Ps we were manufacturing in the first 2 months. We have sharply rationalized the portfolio into 3 or 4 categories. For example, we believe that virgin coconut oil, green coffee and protein shake, these 3 definitely have legs, and therefore the rest of the things we are not going to focus. And these 3, obviously, because there is health, there is immunity associated with it, we'll start focusing. In fact, we are started as we speak. We have already started manufacturing and selling. We are back to pre-COVID levels in around July itself. But we have the rest of the portfolio, we had those small initiatives, we have all cut it down because right now the system, the complexity and the bandwidth we did doesn't make sense. With these 3, we are going to definitely grow, and we will do better numbers than last year, what we did with all the 10 or 11 subcategories we had.
And the hygiene portfolio, do you think it will be margin accretive or it will be?
Yes, so hygiene portfolio makes reasonably decent margin, and I think if you look at it, I think right now because of the demand and other things, we are not, other than of course Veggie Clean, which is a new category creation. You don't need too much A&P behind those categories at this point in time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next question is from the line of Krishnan Sambamoorthy from Motilal Oswal. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Saugata, you always mentioned that foods is a relatively lower margin category. So what gives you the confidence that you would be able to do 20% plus margins in for the full year, given that foods is expected to grow so sharply? And my second question is, with 350 crores of sales likely targeted in the current year and 500 crores, what would be the improvement in the food margins over this period?
I can't get you into that details on food margin. All I can assure you is that you have to look at foods from the lens of Saffola Plus. Foods does make, anything which we are launching in foods does make more margins than edible oil. Number two, as you know, that foods A&P requirement is lower than personal care. And even with 300 crore plus, it is around less than 5% of the Marico India turnover. So I don't think even that 100 crores incremental in foods, if it happens this year, is going to swing at all the margin. And the categories we are looking at makes decent margin. And that's the reason I think in reply to earlier question I talked about, we might not be interested in basic branded staples, which are commodities in some way.
Okay. And the second question was regarding, I'm sorry if I missed it, I got dropped off the call. On where are we on the copra cycle, and what's the outlook over the next year and a half?
So we have entered the deflationary part, but it's a mild deflation. And usually it is a 18 to 24 month cycle. So we have we have entered. Earlier we thought it will be flattish to slightly positive, but we think it will be slightly deflationary. For us, slightly deflation is much better than a deep deflation, because historically when there is huge correction in copra prices, our volume impacts happen. So this is perfect for us.
Oh, thanks, sir.
Thank you. We take the next question from the line of Vishal Punia from Nirmal Bang. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for the opportunity. So my first question is on the realization in the domestic business. So on a QOQ basis, the difference between the value and the volume is slightly better this quarter, both in Parachute as well as Vaho. You mentioned that the trade spends were rationalized during the quarter. Is that the only reason for that? Is the trade spends now normalized going into the 2Q? And secondly, on direct reach, you mentioned that there was a huge focus on increasing your direct reach during the quarter. What would be the new number for direct reach? You mentioned that it was around 0.9 million at the end of the fiscal year FY20. Has that increased very sharply now?
Okay. First, let me just answer your first question. Some of it is obviously trade spends. Some of it could be also in Parachute. We might have sold slightly larger packs, and so it's a combination of a little bit of mix and but mostly largely that realization is because of trade spends. Obviously, we believe that going in quarter two, while we have increased the trade spend, might not have gone back to original levels, because I think still there is a volatility in the system. There is distribution advantage for a person who is doing direct distribution, especially when you are competing with smaller players. So there would be some rationalization of trade spends, and including some of these which are linked to some programs in retail outlets, because I think today they are just stocking for offtake. They are not stocking for creating stocking because there's a promotion or a BTL below the line discount being given and they're overstocking. Today, people are in, most of the retail outlets in GT are in auto replenishment mode, so that is how it happens. As regards direct distribution, I think we are into the 900,000 to 1 million outlets. What I spoke to you about is this initiative started in the second half of the last year in terms of improving our quality of rural distribution, including wherever we have indirect to direct. So it is a more long-term number. So it's not that this quarter direct distribution increased. In fact, as I said, that at any point in time, we were not able to service. On an average, we have been able to actually service 70% of our outlets this quarter. So this quarter, obviously, especially in urban pockets where the COVID situation was high, I don't think we are able to reach that original direct distribution. Having said that, I think we have started the rural distribution, and over a 1 year period, if you take, say, since second half of last year, and then you extend it to the full year, we believe that there will be a significant increase in direct distribution, especially in rural.
Okay, thank you. Just lastly, I just wanted to hear your thoughts on the implementation of technology at the distributor level. So we have been hearing from the channels that because of the order taking through or using technology for taking orders at the distributor level, they have been seeing a good amount of efficiencies. If you can highlight what kind of cost efficiencies you can see because of this order taking and because of the current situation, the implementation could have only picked up. So if you can just highlight or give your thoughts on this front.
Okay, so I think firstly, if you look at it, our first endeavor was to ensure that we don't lose orders. So one of the things we are looking at, I think, is telecalling, and as you know that also physically it's not we are not able to service all outlets. Number two, because of social distancing and other safety requirements, the average productivity of a direct order taking will suffer. So we are looking at, and of course, people availability was the issue. So we are looking at telecalling and other automation means to actually drive, order taking. So our first endeavor is to get growth and not lose orders. Obviously, over the long term, this efficiency will happen. I don't think this efficiency will happen in the short term. In fact, in the short term, because of COVID, there are a lot of costs that have got added to the system, which we are ensuring so that, because for us, availability equal to market share. So I think those efficiencies that will happen will be long term. However, this has accelerated the GTM transformation and automation transformation in GT, urban GT especially. Something which would have happened in 2 to 3 years are going to happen perhaps in 1 year.
But don't you think that this could also lead to less sales people at the distributor level, which could basically reduce their cost and in turn give you cost benefits?
I think the question is that at this point in time, our focus is to ensure so we don't lose orders and have effective coverage. Over the medium to long term, it will happen, definitely.
Okay. Thanks, Saugata, for your answer. Thanks.
Thank you. We take the last question from the line of Abneesh Roy from Edelweiss. Please go ahead.
Just a few follow-ups on the media. How is the online advertising in Q1, and do you see that immediately reversing back to the normal now in Q2 and Q3, wherein say the TV again becomes back to the earlier large number?
We continue to advertise in television in May, June. Obviously, depending on the media and the consumption habits of people, the mix would have changed, the media mix would have changed. But some of the online consumptions will be a permanent reset, some will be not. So depending on how the situation pans out, our mix will change. Having said that, I think still we have a large set of mass brands where television advertising will continue to hold sway.
So what on innovation, I had one question. Earlier you had said that now you will do fewer and bigger innovation. Now you have done 5 innovations in India in the last few months. Of course, some are based on the COVID opportunity. So is there any change to that strategy of fewer and bigger innovation?
I didn't get you.
So essentially do a few 2-3 innovations instead of say 5. Last year also you did more than that number. So doing just a few innovations, backing that by ad spend, is there any change to that, or you want to do more innovation and let some of them succeed and then you will decide on advertising?
So some will be big bets which will be supported by A&P. Some are range. So as I said that maybe in health and hygiene, some will be only sold through digital and not necessarily through the mass. So it will be depending on that. When I talked about few things, I think there could be fewer big bets rather than having 7 with all sucking up advertising spends.
And for the last question on nationalization, Unilever also called out in India that they will rationalize SKUs. you also mentioned you actually dwelled into more detail wherein you said because currently personal product discretionary the demand is low, short term you will be cutting down on SKUs. But is there something more structural there? Because in COVID you have learned that most of the profit, most of the sales are coming from lesser number of SKU. So you, even after say the discretionary comes back, will you go back to that large number of SKUs?
So I think obviously there's a hidden cost of complexity. When you deep dive into, when you are forced to do something, there could be a permanent wastage because usually there is as far as SKUs are concerned, there is a significant Pareto. And I think what happens is during these times it becomes much more easy to do change management in terms of people eliminating SKUs, and I believe some part of it will be permanent because there is a magic in simplicity. There is a huge cost savings in simplicity. So one of the cost management exercise, another thing that happens is when you have huge number of SKUs, these tail end SKUs actually lead to larger amount of write-offs because this is where the forecasting accuracy is wrong. These are where your fill rates are bad. So therefore, I think there is a huge case for doing simple business. I think simple automated business, and I think COVID has taught you that you can work with 50% people operate at 90% capacity. So I think there are a lot of learnings for COVID to become far more automated and agile and simple.
Okay, Saugata, that's all from me. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was the last question for today. I would now like to hand the conference over to the management for closing comments.
Thank you so much. Dear investors and analysts, we thank you for joining today's call. Given the unprecedented times, we are reasonably happy with what we could deliver in the first quarter. We hope that the quarters ahead get safer and better. However, in the near term, turbulence cannot be avoided, and we are committed to wade through these muddy waters and deliver growth for the balance of the year on the back of our strong brands and the never say die attitude of Mariconians. Till we meet again next quarter, stay safe and take care. Good night.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Axis Capital Limited, we conclude today's conference. Thank you for joining. You may now disconnect your lines.